have been very few video game adaptations that I would hesitate to call successful, let alone good. Perhaps the best game-to-screen depiction we've had so far would be Castlevania, so it's a pretty shallow pool of candidates that Netflix's new series, Arcane, based on the insanely popular League of Legends online multiplayer game, is surrounded by. To call Arcane the greatest video game adaptation of all time completely undersells just how incredible this show is. With a 100% Rotten Tomatoes rating and a 98% audience score, Arcane isn't just one of the best adaptations of all time, isn't just one of the greatest animated series of all time, it's one of the best pieces of media of all time, period. Arcane is a masterpiece. Arcane draws from the deep but largely unexplored lore of League of Legends and focuses on siblings Vi and Powder, the young but troubled girl who eventually becomes the unstable and insanely engaging Jinx. Vi is a young girl struggling to support her sister in the grim, dark steampunk undercity of Zorn. Caught in a power struggle between her underground home and the utopian city of Piltover, who rule through power and privilege, Vi and Jinx find themselves drawn apart by powers beyond their control, while the arrival of the magical technology Hextech promises to change the future of both cities forever. I don't want to say anything more about the plot of this series. There are several key characters that each impact the story in unique and interesting ways, which itself is full of political intrigue, bonkers off-the-wall action, and is chock full of character development. Vi and Jinx both develop into extremely strong and interesting characters. While the series does have its share of villains, they are all developed so well that it's not only easy to sympathise with them, their point of view makes them just as well realised as the conflicted heroes themselves. In fact, I would even struggle to call them heroes and villains. The heroes occasionally do very unheroic things, giving this show a very hard edge. For kids, this show is a maybe. There is a smattering of blood, occasional profanities, and then, at the end of episode 3, the series drops an absolute gut punch on the audience, which forces the viewer into the twisted web of tragedy this tale is spinning. Vi and Jinx are our entry point into Zorn, the undercity where drugs are cheap and lives are cheaper, where the people are begging, scraping, and fighting for their survival. Up top, in the city of Piltover, where a council rules and governs, scientists Jace and Victor are developing the very technology they hope will improve the lives of the people above and below alike, yet are caught in a dark web of conspiracy that, by the end of the series, completely engulfs them. Their story is one of how power corrupts, in contrast to the story of the sisters who have already lost everything and are fighting to keep what little they have left. I really love the characters in this series. Vi, voiced by Hailee Steinfeld, is capable and engaging, and really should be doing far more voice work. She gives Vi a sense of vulnerability in contrast with her hard edge, which makes for a really dynamic and engaging lead. I loved her subtle but definitely queer relationship with Caitlin, the high society police officer from Piltover. She's fantastic in the series, as is Ella Parnell as the voice of Jinx, a character whose popularity will catapult through the stratosphere if all is good and right in the world. She's written as a combination of innocence and collateral carnage like Harley Quinn, and the machinations and theatricality of the Joker. What could have been a one-note character becomes a study of how trauma can impact an individual, and watching her evolve throughout the series is incredible. Their personalities are even portrayed through their actions, with Vi being the tough, determined brawler, and Jinx the quick, agile wildcard. There are many other characters in this series that are also extremely interesting. The character of Silco should have been a one-note gangster in the seedy underbelly of Zorn, but his fatherly relationship with Jinx is also another highlight for the series, showing a willingness to shade these characters as neither good nor evil. It helps that they are all incredibly visually distinct and impeccably designed. This is a show that just doesn't work in live action. In animation, Arcane is given a sense of scale that would be beyond the budget of any live-action TV show. It's also worth noting the animation in Arcane is simply stunning. Arcane isn't so much a Netflix series as a 3-act feature film separated into 9 episodes, with a budget that would be comparable to a blockbuster feature film. I wouldn't be surprised if this show cost well over $100 million to produce, because every cent is on the screen in the incredibly detailed animation and art design. Arcane was produced by Riot Studios, the developer behind the behemoth League of Legends video game, and French animation studio Fortiche. In order to create the intensely detailed and meticulously designed backgrounds, a hand-painted approach was taken, while the texture on the characters was also done by hand over the top of 3D models. Then, hand-drawn 2D effects have been overlaid. This is a painstaking process, completely different from other traditional 3D animation shows where the character models can be recycled and reproduced. It's how you end up with a show that looks like a painting in motion rather than the lifeless, flat 3D shows that Netflix churns out by the dozen. The effect is that Arcane looks like a high-budget masterpiece in line with Into the Spider-Verse, completely bespoke and utterly unique. The series becomes especially cinematic and dynamic in the diverse and well-executed action scenes, which are showy and over the top in a way that live action would be incapable of producing. Whenever Arcane commits to showcasing an action set piece, which is usually once an episode, the camera follows the principles of cinematic cinematography, grounding the choreography while also highlighting the energy of the action itself. There are some incredible scenes in this series that are burned and seared into my brain. Any fight scene involving Jinx or V was an absolute blast to watch. They were visually distinct, but not one of those big action beats outstayed their welcome. There was very little drag in this series, which kept the pace thrilling throughout. In fact, the only thing I didn't like about Arcane was that, at the end of the 9 episodes, it ended. It ended on a cliffhanger, and I wanted more. Fortunately, despite Arcane not being as hugely successful in America, it's done very well worldwide, and has been given a 2nd season green light. Even though I am a gamer myself, I've never actually played League of Legends. I don't even think I've ever watched someone play League of Legends. The strength of Arcane as a series stands on its own. It's not just a good adaptation. It's not just a great animated series. It's a phenomenal piece of storytelling with compelling characters, an intricate and intriguing setting, and a deeply interesting plot, reminiscent of the best Prestige era television. Arcane isn't just a great piece of animation. It's a modern masterpiece that you need to watch. I'm not going to give Arcane a review score. It doesn't need it. It currently has a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. Instead, I'm telling you to watch the first 3 episodes. The series has 3 arcs, which debuted 3 episodes at a time. At the end of the 3rd episode, there is a seismic shift in plot and character development that upends the foundations of the show and impacts the rest of the narrative moving forward. If you're not hooked by then maybe Arcane isn't for you. But for me, Arcane was outstanding, and I can't wait to see what happens in Season 2. As always, if you like what you've seen and you want to see more, like and subscribe for more content in the coming days. Later days.